The room buzzed with anticipation as Malcolm Hayes, the 39-year-old tech visionary, Fortune 500 CEO, and one of the youngest black billionaires in America, stepped onto the marble floor of the Van der Helms estate. This was the night. The culmination of months of negotiations. A $1.2 billion merger that would place his AI startup into the global spotlight. And now, under the glittering chandeliers and suffocating arrogance of old money, Malcolm was here, dressed sharp, composed, but not alone. He brought his father. Not because it was strategic, but because he always did. Set up, the father behind the man. Walter Hayes had once worked 2 janitorial jobs to put food on the table for his son. His fingers were bent from labor, his back curved with age and dignity. He never wore suits, never drank wine he couldn't pronounce. But he always showed up, quietly proud, always in Malcolm's corner. Tonight, in a modest gray blazer that didn't match the room, Walter stood beside his son with a proud but wary smile. Malcolm had given him everything, a comfortable home, a life of peace. But Walter never let go of his humility. Or his roots. The incident. The crowd was full of silk and sneers. Behind crystal goblets and hollow smiles, the Van der Helms were old money royalty, media moguls known as much for their influence as their prejudice hidden behind etiquette. As dinner was served, a young Van der Helm grandson, slurring from champagne, pointed across the room and laughed. "Hey, Malcolm, your butler's standing behind you like a lost puppy. You sure he's not about to grab someone's plate?" The laughter rippled. Thin. Cruel. Malcolm's heart froze. His father, his hero, stood still, eyes down, hands clasped in front like he used to at work. Not angry. Just, deeply hurt. A flash of embarrassment crossed his face before he quietly turned away and headed toward the garden alone. Nobody stopped him. Nobody apologized. Because to them, he was invisible. The turning point. Malcolm excused himself, walked past the smirks and murmurs, and found his father sitting on a bench beneath a sycamore tree. "You all right, Dad?" Walter gave a small nod. "Son, I've been through worse. But, it still stings. I guess you never really stop feeling small around certain people." Malcolm swallowed hard. "You shouldn't have to feel small. Not after everything you did to make me big." Walter smiled gently. "Just remember, son, you're not truly big if you let others shrink your soul." Something shifted in Malcolm. The merger, the billions, suddenly felt cheap. The decision. The next morning, Malcolm walked into the Van der Helms boardroom, his legal team behind him, their pens ready to finalize history. He stood calmly and addressed the entire room. "I came here ready to sign. But last night, you didn't just insult a man, you insulted my father. The man who taught me dignity, grit, and what it means to lead." The room stiffened. "So let me be clear. I'm walking away. Not out of anger, but principle. I don't do business with people who wear class as armor and cruelty as fashion." Gasps. Confusion. Protest. But Malcolm simply buttoned his coat, turned, and left. The impact. The story went viral within hours. Malcolm's statement was shared across every news network, social media feed, and business blog. #integrity over income began trending. Within a week, 3 other companies pulled out of partnerships with the Van der Helms. A month later, Malcolm announced a new joint venture, with minority-owned firms and tech entrepreneurs from underrepresented communities. Investors once skeptical now admired him even more. But none of that mattered to Malcolm as much as what came next. One evening, back at home, he found his father tending to his small backyard garden. No cameras. No applause. Just peace. "Proud of you, son," Walter said softly. Malcolm knelt beside him, dirt on his palms. "I learned from the best." In a world obsessed with profit, Malcolm chose pride. Where others saw deals, he saw dignity. Because real wealth isn't measured in billions, but in the values we stand for when no one expects us to. Let this remind us, success without soul is just noise. But when we honor those who lifted us, even the most powerful rooms fall silent in respect. Kindness is not weakness. And courage? It begins with saying no when it truly matters.